This is First 10. We're here every week. New format, talking all of it on one day. Talking with Guy Junker. So, Guy, when you look at the Penguins, we brought this up a little bit earlier. I was considering this question this morning. Who's to blame most for their struggles? If you could put it on one person, was it Fenway Sports Group? Is it Ron Hextall? Is it Kyle Dubas? Is it Mike Sullivan? I don't know. And I don't even know if it's fair to blame one person, but how would you look at how we got here compared to where they were only a couple years ago?
Well, I was not a Ron Hextall fan at all. I don't think he did anything positive. Kyle Dubas inherited pretty much an impossible situation, although some of the, the early deal to Jarry and Graves, and he made the things a little worse. In an odd kind of way, I would almost say Jim Rutherford. And I like Jim Rutherford, and I think he did what he should have done in trying to keep that team together and afloat to challenge for titles. Nobody remember who loses in the Eastern Conference Finals, or what a great season. When you have that rare opportunity, generational talent, more than one of them. But I also think that their lack of draft choices, lack of prospects, the kind of no-win situation that they're in now is largely in part of him doing that over those years. Like I said, I don't blame him. I think that was the way to go. But I think that's the biggest reason they are where they are, and neither Hextall or Dubas now has been able to get them out from under that.
Yeah, and I think I guess it's kind of a trick question, right? You can't blame all of this stuff on one person. I mean, I agree with you on what they did. Not that I wouldn't blame Jim. I think he was carrying out the wishes of ownership,
Sure.
and what they should have done at that time, like you're saying. And they should have had a better plan for coming out of it. That probably falls more on Hextall. In hindsight, I don't know if re-signing Evgeny Malkin and Chris Letang to their current contracts was the right move. You probably should have made a hard decision back then when you had the opportunity and then pivot to younger players. But, now we're in the Kyle Dubas era, and signing Tristan Jarry for that length of contract wasn't good. I don't think they're getting the benefit out of Erik Karlsson. The Graves contract is atrocious. So there's all the current problems as well. It seems kind of one step, each one step here.
I agree with you on especially Malkin and partially Letang, but I also think part of that obviously was to keep Sidney Crosby happy, which you had to do. And I will say this, I fell asleep last night at the end of regulation and I missed the overtime goal. I'll still watch them just to see what he's going to do on any given night. And that road trip was frustrating. I mean, 1 goal and the 4 losses. You want to give up 3 hours of your life to sit there and maybe see them score a goal. But Sidney Crosby to me is still worth sitting there and seeing what he can possibly come out. I mean, for him, you look at all those. I think he's 18th in the league in scoring now, and still averaging more than a point a game. And all those guys in front of him are younger. Yeah. But I think I think they hung on longer than the LA Kings, who are now, built back up, the Chicago, even Boston. I mean, some of those teams, they fell apart more quickly. The Penguins were relevant longer, but now while those teams are starting to bounce back a little bit, they're not. And, a lot of people point to the Washington Capitals too, Jason. They're having a good year. But I look at the Capitals too as, would you have rather had Ovechkin? Would you rather have had Crosby if you could go back and relive those drafts? And the ping pong balls maybe dropped a different way. Capitals have won 1 Stanley Cup. So the Penguins may be paying the price, but for 3 championships, are you kidding me? The Steelers have been in business twice as long, the Pirates 3-4 times as long, and they all have basically the same amount of championships. So I think it was worth whatever they had to do to get where they are.
I totally agree with you, Guy. The only thing I don't like right now is I wish it was efforting toward more. Like right now, they're still in kind of the mushy middle, right? And I wish we were seeing some young guys up here getting playing time. Use the rest of this season for something. They're not going to compete. And if you talk about a fire sale, I think there's only so much they can do because of no movement clauses and whatever. Marcus Pettersson's an easy one for me. I think it would depend on what they were getting for Rickard Rakell. If it was really worth it, if that price was high, I would do it, and I would do it now. Some other guys, Karlsson, if I could get something for him, of course I would trade him. I want to see them now go in the rebuilding, the getting this back to competitive as quickly as possible and still capture a few of those Sid years, whatever that, because I don't think he's going to be gone in the next 2 or something, guy. Like, I know that's what his contract is. Getting to know Sid, I've never got that impression that he was somebody that like had a specific date and he was going to walk. Like, I could see Sid 45 and still, as long as he can meet his own standard, which we've seen no signs of him being unable to do that.
Well, I think the thing about him to me is, and you've met a lot of athletes. I think no matter what you do in life, you do it for a long enough period of time, you get a little bit bored with it, you get jaded by it. I think he loves hockey now as much as he did when he was 12 years old.
I don't think he knows how to do anything else.
No, I mean, it is his entire, if he retires, he'll be shooting pucks at his own dryer in his basement,
Right.
So I agree with you. I think he could play a long time. And I think the outlook has to change from trying to build a cup contender around, try to build a team that could get in the playoffs, maybe win a round or two, just to have few more glory. And you never know when you get in, you get hot at the right time, but the mentality, forget about it. They're not a cup contender. They're not even close to it. If you could just, get maybe a little bit faster, a little bit younger and win a round or two here or there before he retires, that'd be great.
Yeah. All right. Let's finish up with some Pirates talk. Got a couple questions to throw out there with them. I happen to think, we were talking about this a little bit earlier, that they can be better than people expect. They better win more than 76 games. I don't think that's going to make anybody over there or their fans happy if they fall on 76 again. But in your mind, Guy, what has to happen for them to get above 76, maybe to have a 500 or above season? What sort of things are you looking at?
Well, I'm pretty confident in the pitching. I mean, Aroldis Chapman's going to be tough to replace. I mean, that was, he had that one little, and I blame a lot of that. He had that blister for a while. He had that one little stretch where he was ineffective, but that was pretty nice having him around last year.
Yeah.
I think,
especially with Bednar struggles and Holderman struggles.
Right. Key Brian Hayes has to come back and hit better than he has. I mean, I don't know if it's back issues, what it is. He had the great September 2 years ago, but I think they need some more offense out of their infield. They need to figure out right. I think catching is going to be a positive this year with Endy Rodriguez coming back. I'm not completely sold on the first baseman that they got, but right field still remains an issue too. How much more can McCutchen give you? 20 home runs at his age? Is Brian Reynolds going to slow down at all? My concerns are all offense more than anything else. I think the pitching staff's going to be fine. And I don't think Bednar was ever healthy last year. He pitched, in 2 spring training games?
Yeah. Kind
of was banged up most of the year. I think you're going to see a bounce back year from him. So starting pitching, I think is going to be an A+. Bullpen's going to be a B. Hitting to me right now on paper looks like a C, and that's got to get up to at least like a B- for them to be a 500 team.
Yeah, you might be generous giving it a C at this point. I think there's a lot of the city that would not give him that. I look at things like Oneil Cruz, and the growth that he had last season. I mean, he made some strides. At the same time, I still think there's a whole nother level. He could double his WAR from last season, and it wouldn't surprise me. Like, I think that's in there. They need that to happen. They need more from Isaiah Kiner-Falefa than they got. Young guys like Henry Davis, Jack Sawinski, you're not going to have them both work out. Maybe Gonzalez, Triolo. But can one of those guys turn into a regular who can positively impact your offense? I'm talking like 750 to 800 OPS. And I'm building off of what you're saying, of course, with Brian Hayes. I don't disagree with that. I liked what Joey Bart did offensively. It's just, can they score enough runs? I think that's a completely fair question to ask. I wish they would have done more to add. I hope they're not done. I hope there's at least one move coming. I don't think the lineup is deep enough, but yeah, I'm with you on the pitching. I like the bullpen. I think Brent Strom's going to be very good for them. As odd as that sounds, a guy with a history of working with relievers, has a good eye for pitching. You're good. You're good. So I think the pitching can get them there. It's just, can they score enough runs? But
I also look back at last year, that 10-game losing streak. If they'd have been 5-5 in that 10-game losing streak, September would have been interesting.
Yeah.
They went 2 weeks of just totally playing awful. The Oneil Cruz, Brian Reynolds collision there, and that was in Houston. That's kind of started it. They blew like a 3 or 4 run lead for Skenes in the one game. If they get through that 5-5, and a lot of people say, fifths and nuts. No, that's one little 2-week section of the season that kind of ruined the whole rest of it. So they might have been a little closer being a 500 team last year than people think. My hope is, I know I read what the fans are putting on social media. I know it was a little bit rough at the Pirate Fest. My hope is they're going to wait. And if this starting pitching is as good as we think it can be, even if it's not before the season starts, that they start making more of a commitment or maybe add some offense as the season goes on somewhere. If they see they're getting what they want out of their pitching staff and can go further than maybe they think they can, maybe that'll happen.
No doubt. The other thing that I think is important here, guy, I was going to ask you maybe an under the radar player, but we kind of went through the lineup, guys that we think are important. Here's an under the radar storyline. I know you're not going to disagree with me here. Play better fundamental baseball.
Oh,
it is not a salary payroll issue to make routine plays routinely. So when a ball is hit at shortstop, turn to when it's required. Throw to the right base. Don't overthrow things. Back up plays. Run the bases well. Don't make the first or third out of an inning at third base. Basic fundamental stuff that contributed to their 10-game losing streak. Imagine if they did that and they closed out games and went 5-5 in that losing streak. They probably win 84 games last year, and not nearly as many people are as hacked off with the Pirates. You're looking at that and saying like, hey, this is a pretty good young core. Yeah, let's keep that. We don't really need to add maybe a piece here and there or whatever, but gone from 76 to 84 wins or right in the thick of it down to the stretch. We got Skenes, Jones, Bubba Chandler coming. There's all kinds of optimism. But because there were poor fundamentals and they went 5-5 and they went 0-10 in the stretch where they could have went 5-5, to me, that's not a reason to blow it up.
Well, you took the words out of my mouth, because when you first asked me what could they do to get to 500 or win something in the 80s, that thought came to my mind. Running from second to third with nobody on first with a ground ball hit to the left side of the infield drives me nuts. Not being able to get, you want more offense. All right, I don't need a guy that's going to hit 40 homers, but how about a guy that can hit a sacrifice fly with a guy on third and 1 out or no outs? How frustrating is it to have second and third, nobody out, man on third, 1 out, and you don't get that run in when your offense is not the strength of your team to begin with? I hear John Wayner talk a lot about they'll send a guy up the bunt and he pops it up or something. I said he hasn't bunted in that's his first sacrifice attempt in 3 years. Yeah, I get that. Well, how about they start working on that or make that a little bit more of a priority? There's nothing wrong with playing small ball. Play according to what you have, and they have a small ball lineup. That does.
They have a small ball pitching staff too, guy. I mean, they're going to have to win games 3-2, 2-1, whatever.
Yeah, I don't care about
run. That's okay.
Everybody's going to boot a ground ball, throw one away here and there. It's those little things that just show that you're not paying attention. You don't know how many outs there are. We have very recently seen him get in a rundown, a guy from first base back to home plate. I mean, I coach Little League. I never saw anything like that happen. So, yeah, I think that would be a big part of it, too. And when you mention Oneil Cruz, I agree with you in that the things that I liked about him, I thought he was much better by the end of last year than earlier in the year with hitting with 2 strikes. And I thought he was much better, at not swinging at pitches that were out of the strike zone that he was. I thought he was much more disciplined by the end of the year. Hopefully that progress continues, because as we know, this whole talk about small ball and stuff, they have to cut down on their strikeouts. Oh my goodness, the amount of strikeouts that I was just telling somebody recently. I said, do you know the 7th game of the 1960 World Series won by Bill Matt, that there wasn't a single strikeout, not one guy struck out that whole game, and they didn't believe me. They went and looked up the box score. And today, there's just no shame. And it's not just the Pirates. Guys strike out everywhere. I think it's part of what makes the game not quite as much fun to watch as it used to be.
Yeah. Guy, thanks so much. This is fun. I kept you way longer than I promised you in a text. I know you don't mind. I know you have a pretty open day. But thanks so much for being a good sport and chatting some Pittsburgh.
Well, I look forward to the season starting and our little cigar meetings before the games.
I don't know what you're talking about, Guy. I don't know where those would be, and I don't know when we would ever do such a thing.
Okay, see you 4/15 in April.
Yep. All right, make sure you like and subscribe. You get all of these videos and so much more from our Post-Gazette North Shore Drive podcast and YouTube channels. For Guy Junker, I'm Jason Mackey. We'll talk to you here next week.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.